Greetings, everyone. This is Sage Armageddon coming to you live with another Dojo session. Now, in the last session, we went over something that's very crucial in our Master Series, and we discussed something known as the mental stack. In summary, of course, we went over what the mental stack is, how it is applied, and different methods that you can utilize it, and how you can utilize it in order to help improve your kung fu. Correct. Now, in this one, what I want to go ahead and do is see if I can expand upon that idea a little bit further, because it was mainly talking about the mental stack in general while giving some examples against certain character matchups on how you can think about using it. But something that I want to go ahead and do in this dojo session is we're going to discuss the mental stack in Chun Li. So the mental stack and you, the Chun Li player, right? So with no further ado, let's go ahead and get this session started. Now, why is it important with Chun Li specific? Well, as you've probably heard in some of my past videos, including rants and things of that nature, I have discussed about how Chun Li is a little bit on the weaker end. Now, there are people that don't necessarily take to that idea and judgment. There are a lot of people that would say that Chun Li is strong. But me, the way I do things is I don't look simply at results. I distinguish things into two specific categories because obviously there are people that do well with Chun Li, but the way that I distinguish it is I distinguish it in character strength in terms of the actual in-game character and the strength of the player that is piloting that character. Those are two different individual things that can overlap to and fro, right? So you could have a character like Dan Hibiki, who is supposed to be a troll character, and you can have somebody absolutely decimate people with that character because of how skilled they are as a player when it comes to not only just Street Fighter, but fighting games in general, correct? Kind of the same idea with Chun Li or Jin In from Tekken 7. These are characters that they are like empty vessels. They don't really contain anything stupid themselves. But if you are able to pour in, I guess you could say, godhood into that vessel, it will show itself through the character perfectly, right? Like that, the whole saying goes that God's strength is perfect in weakness, right? So you have a lot of characters that can just kind of brain dead their way out, right? You have Lily that can just keep doing Condor Spire and then making you guess. You have Shotos like Kin that can just Jinra you to death and just throw loop you and force you to interact and all that bullcrap, right? So Chun Li is a character. Back to the main point. Chun Li is as a character specifically is not a very strong, I would say. And I've given those points as to why I say that in previous sessions and videos. But the reason how that matters with the mental stack is because we discussed the mental stack from a perspective of what we're trying how we're trying to use the mental stack against our opponent, right? That way we can understand what it is that they're capable of doing at any specific time frame. But we didn't discuss how the mental stack how your opponent is going to be using the mental stack against you, the Chun Li player, correct? And that's why I mentioned that she's not the strongest character. And we're going to get into that a bit more right now. So something that attributes to a mental stack, as I closed with the last session, is ultimately at its most fundamental base. The mental stack is what are you afraid of, quote unquote, or what is it that you need to look out for? Even if you're not necessarily afraid, like you're not anxious in real life, what is it that's going to lose you the game if you are not prepared for it? And that's the same type of whole idea when it comes to this mental stack. So if we go through characters here, we're going to be able to go through some characters, and I could probably, even though I'm not the best when it comes to matchups, I can probably go over some things that if you are not prepared for it, they will lose you the game, right? I don't know how to do it with Luke per se, but Luke has some type of setup where he can do this back punch and it's plus on block. Let me get Ryu to block here. Right. Oh, look, he's +4. I don't know I don't know the actual string that they do to go into it, but it's something, and then they do this, and then they get the perfect timing, right? Right, and he's +4. We discussed in the mental stack video why the mental stack even exists, because there are things you have to worry about. And the things that you, as you recall, if you've seen that video, if not, I would urge you to check it out before going into this one. But if you, as we discussed in that session, it's things that allow your opponent to put you into a guessing situation, which 9 times out of 10 is making them plus in your face. So Luke doing stuff like this, he also has some shoulder tackle that he can do. I don't know how to do it. It's probably punch, isn't it? Yeah, there you go. They can knock you down and then run Oki on you doing the shoulder tackle. So those are two things that Luke has. His crouch medium punch, though they apparently nerfed it, but his crouch medium punch was very, because he's +1 on, you know. So I don't know how they nerfed it, but those are some things with Luke that you have to watch out for. Let's go ahead to the next character. All right, now with Jamie, it's going to be a little bit trickier because he has to drink. But once he drinks, some things that you have to watch out for are, especially since with Chun Li players and Tensho kicks is kind of butt. You got to watch out for people changing their jump trajectories with dive kicks, especially since he can angle it differently depending on the strength of the kick, right? So that's something you have to watch out for. As a fireball character, you also have to watch out for. That's not what I asked you to do, my friend. You also have to watch out for stuff like this. Right. That's risky, quote unquote, but most Jamie players, even when I try to bait them, I end up still getting caught in that somehow because it's instantaneous. So they can pretty much, the fireball can literally be like inside of their body, and then they can still kind of do this, right? So you have to watch out for that, and it goes pretty far. Chun-Li recovers very slowly, so you do have to be careful with that. And then you also have to be careful of his command grab bullcrap, which I don't know how to do. Ah, there we go. You got to watch out for command grab bullcrap. This actually makes him a lot scarier when he's in your face because he can just do this crap at any time, right? Now let's go to another option. Let's go ahead to Kimberly here. Kimberly, obviously, we know. You got to watch out for elbow drops, which can make it difficult to anti-air her in a snap with Chun-Li specifically. You got to watch out for the freaking teleporting bullcrap that Kimberly players like to do, where they can teleport, or the instant speed slide, which I don't know how to do. There we go. Yep. So she can kind of mix you up from across the screen and all that jazz, and then she can run and get plus frames if she does. She has a move where she dashes. That's it. Yeah, she's +1 in your face. You got to watch out for them throwing out stupid stuff like that, right? Teleporting in for free, all that jazz. So those are things that you do want to be very careful of. Let's go ahead to 2 more characters. I'm going over characters that we don't discuss, right? Because it's kind of, we've already gone over Kin to death. So there are characters that we don't discuss very often that we have to be wary of, right? So let me see. We already know about the fan. Cammy, instant speed, dive kick, makes her literally impossible to anti-air, especially for Chun-Li. You practically cannot use fireballs against her because even when I try to bait it, I always end up getting caught with a spin knuckle and then I die. Right. JP, we obvious. We don't need to worry about that. Um, who else do we have here? Ed. Ed, you got to worry about ropes. This bullcrap right here is very effing annoying to deal with. Um, it's like the players have psycho powers in real life when they're picking Ed. They always know if you're gonna jump or not, right? But this move is very effing oppressive when you're fighting somebody that knows how to use Ed. So you do have to watch out for that. Um, Other than that, I don't think Ed has the scariest stuff that you have to look out for. He's pretty. You do have to watch out for his normals because I guess that's something because he has some of like the best normals in the game, right? Like his range is absolutely insane. He can play footsies like pretty much better than almost every other character in the game, pretty much. So you do have to be careful to not whiff. And let's see what else we can do here. Okay, so now that we got that under wraps, let's go back to our main point here. So how the mental stack applies to Chun Li. All those characters have something that you, for the most part, that you have to worry about. That if you do not pay very close attention to it, you will lose the game. When Ed is priming his ropes, you pretty much can't get anywhere near him. There's a specific timing where you can essential through it, but when testing it further, it doesn't seem to be very consistent. So it's very difficult to get past an Ed character when they're doing that bullcrap, especially on Wake Up, right? So with Chun Li, what is it that we have that we can really use to scare the opponent, right? And I know many are probably expecting you to say, well, given your disdain towards the character, you're probably going to say nothing. There's nothing to worry about. And while that is mostly true, you did a good job. There is one thing that people that fight Chun Li might have to be careful with and that is this. Now, I'm going to get into it in a bit more depth, but pretty much this does allow for you to do this bullcrap right here, right? Fireball, drive rush, crouch medium, kick the game. Now, unfortunately, Chun-Li's potential with this is diminished because since she does not have a throw loop or throw Oki, you can't really abuse it, right? And for those that are wondering what I'm talking about, feel free to take a look at some of my previous videos, such as the sessions where I talk about the struggle of using Chun Li, as well as the Okizeme video for Chun Li. Characters like Ken can really, 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 really take advantage of this bullcrap right here because they can do this bullcrap and then they can just kind of just throw loop. I don't know Ken's throw loop Oki. But we all already know that Ken can just keep grabbing you over and over again, right? I think this is a throw loop, if I'm not mistaken. So you just kind of keep doing it over and over again. So he can put you in a tornado by doing this and then just running Oki on you all day long. Chun Li can't do that. If she throws you, especially out of the corner, anything that she tries to do is completely fake, and even somebody that doesn't know the matchup that is scared and they just start pressing buttons on Wake Up, they can easily check you out of it. So you absolutely cannot try to scam people with this unless you're fighting somebody that just doesn't. They're just afraid to press any buttons, right? This is fake if you try to do it, right? She doesn't have Oki off of her throw. And that's why, even though this, technically speaking, is something that they quote-unquote have to be concerned about, it's not that dangerous because she can't keep mixing you all day, right? Because without the throw Okizeme, she can't mix you. She can do something like this. Let's go ahead and make sure block all is turned off for a minute here. Now, she can do something like this, and I just messed that up. Fraudulence alert. Right. She can do something like that, and now she's +4 in your face. And let's say that you decide you want to press a button, she can do this, and then she can, she can just keep. And then once you're in a corner, she does get some throw oki, right? She can do this. I did not push kick. That is crazy that I got a kick button there. Interesting. I'm going to save that separately, just a bit of an intermediate, because I want to see what the heck happened there. But back to the main point. So, because she doesn't have throw oki, it's not as scary. If she had throw oki, this character wouldn't be as good as Ken, but she would be a lot scarier if she could just keep doing this bullcrap all day, and then just keep doing it all day, and then just keep doing it all day, right? She would actually be a pretty scary character, because she has a lot of different ways to mix you outside of just throwing you all day, right? But because she can't, anybody that knows better can just kind of parry until you throw them, and then after you throw them, they can just mash their 4-frame jab, and they will check you out of any fake crap that you try to do, right? So that's why this is not that fearsome per se. However, remember what I said earlier about the division between character strength and actual player strength, right? Is that when it comes to putting the mental stack against and making your opponent sweat, giving them something to worry about, that's where you come in as a kung fu warrior, right? As a conduit of just raw grace and destructive skill. That's where you come in as a Chun Li player. You as the player need to be able to produce something for your opponent to be afraid of. Chun Li doesn't really, she has her Senshu. You don't really have to worry about Senshu. Anybody that is decent at the game knows about mental stack, and obviously from the distance that you will want to use Senshu, they can just block. If they stay out of the range of your normals and they check your drive rush, which her drive rush is not the fastest, they don't have to worry about ducking against Chun Li, like, at all. So if you do manage to bust out a Senshu, Ken is +1 in my face. You know what else makes Ken +1 in my face? There you go. So we're pretty much we're doing Ken's job for him. We say, hey Ken, you don't have to worry about doing Dragon Dash. I'm just gonna go ahead and do that for you and put myself right into throw range so that you can kill me. He's like, thanks, I appreciate that. I'm gonna take that offer, right? So that's pretty much what we're doing. We do Hensenshu, right? Like that's why this move isn't that good, right? So we're killing ourselves when we do it, and especially it's even worse if you do these versions. That's why you always see me do the heavy version, because at least they can't just completely destroy my soul. If I do this version of it, then they can just punish me for that and get a combo, right? Like, that's just not good. So Hensenshu, same thing with the OD version. Hensenshu is not something to really be afraid of. Not really. All right. You don't have to be afraid of this because drive impact exists. As a matter of fact, you as the Chun Li player should be afraid to use this, because people love to mash drive impact at heavy attack range for some odd reason. All right. So many master, high master, grandmaster players that I fight, the moment this range comes up, it's the first game, and the first time I do it, drive impact. It happens every time. Then I will literally try to bait them into doing it, and they will never do it. It's like they're psychic and they know what I'm gonna do. But back to the main point, right? You should be afraid to use this. Your opponent don't have to be afraid of this. This is a punish tool. This would be pretty freaking scary if, as we discussed earlier, Chun Li could mix you all day by just throwing, right? But because she can't do that, it diminishes the effect of it. So, what the heck does she have then? This isn't really something to be that afraid of because it's very reactable. and your opponent pretty much has to be frozen solid in fear. They pretty much have to be paralyzed by pure fear in order to worry about you doing stance mix-ups against them, right? Most people are just going to take their turn. But that brings us back to the main point. You as a player, it is your job to strike fear into your opponent, and I'm going to give some insight into ways that we can do that. When we were just talking about doing stance mix-ups, when you are able to put your opponent into a situation where they're losing and they're scared, and you're in their head, you're forcing somebody that was mashing before to be afraid to press anything. You are playing something that we call mind games. Now, this isn't a video about mind games. That's not this session. That's going to be for a future session. But if you can train your opponent to block, that is a fundamental higher level fighting skill that carries across multiple fighting games. Fatal Fury, Street Fighter, Tekken, doesn't matter what it is, right? And what that is you're playing mind games because your opponent does not know what the heck to do in the situation, because every time they try to do something, they get punished for it, right? That's where you come in as a player. You have to be able to get your opponent to that point where they are afraid of you. Then you can start doing crazy stuff like this. Not the spinning bird kick. That's not what I was trying to do. I was trying to do Henshu. Actually, you can start doing stuff like this against your opponent because they're frozen. And let me tell you something, when your opponent is scared, they're going to make more mistakes. So you could do stuff that's unsafe and they won't punish you for it, right? Because they're so scared. So Armageddon, how do we play these mind games and actually strike fear into our opponent? That's tricky because it's going to be dependent, right? Like, it's all in the mental state, because the truth of the matter is that most, if not all, people playing these games have egos. Some of them just keep their egos at bay. And if you've ever been frustrated, you know how it is, right? I can tell you, I get frustrated too. There are times where I am completely unbothered and nothing bothers me. That's usually when I play at my absolute peak. And there are times where I'm just annoyed and frustrated at every little thing that happens. This happens to other players too. Sometimes you can get them to get in that situation, and sometimes they're just in Zen mode and they're completely unbothered, right? They're just in the zone. But you can generally tell when somebody is starting to get more and more frustrated, because they will become more aggressive. They will start to become more doubtful of what to do in a situation, right? So that being said, ways that you can train your opponent are just by having really solid fundamentals. Being able to scare your opponent, make them uncertain of what to do, right? And you do things, that's where we come back to this. This is not directly a threat like Ken's is, where you can just drive rush behind it and then put them into a game-ending mix-up until they guess right. But this is something that you can use to train your opponent to think, okay, this dude is going to just throw fireballs all day long. I'm going to jump. And then when they jump, they take 2,300 damage. Or they take over 5,000 points of damage. And they're like, holy cow, I just took over half of my health for jumping. Hey, you know what that's going to do? That's going to make them scared to jump. And if they're scared to jump, guess what you can do? And now your mental stack is a little bit better for you, because you don't have to worry about trying about losing the game because you went for a Tensho kicks and it didn't come out because the input is trash. Right? You see what I'm saying? So scaring your opponent by making them uncertain. When you have Ken and he's going back and forth and he wants to throw a fireball, and every time he goes to throw a fireball, you just kind of right? Then you take him to the corner, and we're being frauds today, dropping easy stuff. But right, so okay, you can stop shimmying for me, please? All right. Yeah. So there's some other things that we can do. Let's see. You know, when you're doing stuff like this, and your opponent gets used to doing it, because every time you do it, you do this, right? You do it like 2 or 3 times or something of that nature, right? They pretty much can't interrupt this unless they mash. That's why you always see me doing it. And if they try to press it from a distance, they might get punished, right? Let me show you exactly what I mean. Excuse me. We're going to get Ken to do a block reversal. He's going to do a crouching medium. And first we got to get Ken to block. And I did not time that right. Yep. And we're frauds today. You see what I'm saying? So, they might be afraid to. I'm sorry, it's kind of bothering me that I keep dropping that, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to make sure that I get it at least once here. There we go. Okay. So now that we've gotten that ego call out of the way, they might be scared to try to check, because you don't have to do this immediately. If you do it immediately, he can hit you, right? You can hold it. And as long as you hold down back, she will not leave the stance, right? And if your opponent tries to jump while you are in that stance, it's not the best anti-air, but you could do this to them. And then run Oki off of that, right? So, you know, this is a very good defense position, but this isn't about her stance. But you get what I'm saying, right? So if you're going for this stuff right here, they might be afraid to press. So they're waiting for you to do this stuff again, because they're expecting you to. And now Ken is waiting instead of trying to crouch medium punch, because we punished him and we sent him to the corner and took a chunk of his health away. He's gonna wait for us, and then we can do stuff like this because he's blocking now, because we trained him to block by constantly showing him this, right? And maybe once or twice we punished him for trying to check it. So now he's going to wait until you're done, with his goal in mind being to take his turn once you are done. And then once you do, and then once he's expecting that, you just kind of, right, start scrambling their brain to the point where they don't know what to do. Then he might try to jump. And that's not what was supposed to happen. And then you anti-air him when he tries to jump over your fireball. Right. So Ken's doing some strange stuff here, but I think you get the point. You as a Chun Li is a conduit for raw kung fu prowess, basically. And we bolster the efficacy and the efficiency of this character by just simply being very skilled and knowledgeable about the game and how to punish certain things and things of that nature. So Chun Li ultimately, I said all that to say that she doesn't really have anything to really be afraid of, because there's not something that's going to cause them to lose the game if you manage to get it off. If you get plus frames as a Chun Li player, you can't snowball your opponent. They can technically just block all day until you decide to throw them, right? They can parry all day until you decide to throw them, and once you do that, they are free. You can't force an interaction from them anymore. If you try to do something that's fake, they can jab you out of it, right? So ultimately, because the bridge to that win condition is basically broken, your opponent technically doesn't have anything to be afraid of. That's kind of why if you probably noticed as a Chun Li player, that's most likely the reason why, in my theory, is why people are more aggressive against Chun Li, is because even if they're not aware of the mental stat, there's just something subconsciously that they just know when they fight this character, they can get away with dirt because she doesn't have anything that you need to look out for. And that's the truth. Essentially, is there something that you really need to look out for? Yes, lower level players that don't have any knowledge of the game and they're new and they're learning, they have to worry about everything because they barely even know how to block, right? But we're talking about at a baseline level where people actually kind of know what they're doing a little bit. Once you get past that line in the sand, stuff like this just doesn't, it's just not anything to be afraid of. They don't have to be afraid of this because she can't loop you all day long. There is nothing that they have to really be that afraid of with this character. Nothing. The only thing that you can do to make them afraid is by showing them what a kung fu warrior is, right? By being able to play those mind games and mess with their heads, right? Being able to train your opponent to do what you want them to do, and being able to use your tools to counter whatever it is that they try with superior, masterful defense, and to be able to take control of the game, basically, right? Now, the one thing that I would probably say that they do have to be afraid of, and no, it's not falling crane. Falling crane, everybody and their mother knows how to stop this crap. And like I said, you getting plus frames on your opponent doesn't matter because once you grab them, they're back. The neutral's back again, right? So the one thing that could prove to be probably be problematic for the opponent is probably going to be, let's go ahead and turn block all off. And let's set Ken to do a light punch on block. Right. So something that they probably have to be afraid of is something like this. Now the bot was technically able to check me out of that, but I think you get the point. All right, it's something that you can kind of loop over and over again if you do it right. And I'm messing up the timing on basic stuff here. I don't actually use this tech very often, so I'm not very well trained when it comes to it. So forgive me if you see me dropping it here. So pretty much our goal here is to loop this, right? And you can kind of keep doing that all day long until they decide that they want to mash out, right? And the thing about this is that this is a safe jump. So if they do decide that they want to try to mash out, let's go ahead and show you here. It won't work. See? And then you can do this to them because they open themselves up. Right, and then you can do your super or whatever. So let's go ahead and turn that back off. But I think you get the point, right? You can kind of keep doing this. So head stomps, it's a conditional thing, but if you can get your opponent into the situation, which is easier said than done, it's because you have to actually work your way into their space, right? By the time you get them to the corner, you have to be able to actually run this on them in order to keep looping them over and over again. But if you can technically do something like this. And then when they start trying to block or something like that, instead you can go for all types of mix-ups like this. You can do as many kicks as you want to, right? Or you can go into something like this, into a low, when they're waiting for the overhead kick. So then you just bust into a low and then head stomps, right? That's probably it. To be honest with you, not that's the only thing. The only reason I don't really count that is not only because it's very effing hard to do, and it's practically almost guaranteed that between trying to keep your mental stack in order with what your opponent is going to do to try to get out of this, depending on what they do, the timing of your head stomps is going to change. It's not static. It's not picture perfect, right? There are going to be times where your opponent is going to try to jump, and you're going to catch them jumping with your Sharingan, and then you're going to, instead of holding your head stomp all the way down here, you're going to do an instant head stomp in order to make sure that you don't miss when they're in midair, right? There's so many different variables that this is not something that I would consider to be like just a win condition, but it's the closest thing she has to something to be afraid of, right? Just because of the mix-up potential here. But, technically speaking, they can get out of that. They can, if they know the matchup pretty well, they can find a way out of it. But it's when you're in the corner, that's where Chun Li becomes somewhat problematic, maybe a little bit. But since she can't walk up and throw you all day, it's still nowhere close to as good as the other characters, right? So it creates an unfair situation where if you mix your opponent and you go to grab them, you can't keep doing it. Let me show you exactly what I mean, just in case you don't believe me. We're gonna get Ken to do a Harry punch. And then we're gonna knock him down. I mean, a light punch, and then we're gonna knock him down, and then throw him, and then try to scam him. See that? See? Even if you do it off of throw Oki, you can't do it, right? As you can clearly see. So you can't actually scam them with that. You can't do. There's nothing that you can do. Most you can do is trade with them. That's pretty much it. So, you can just for those that didn't believe me when it came to the throw Oki, but you can't abuse your opponents with her throws. She doesn't have throw Oki or a throw loop, and because of that, she's not as threatening, right? So, how do you beat the head stomps? Well, you beat the head stomps. I'm going to show you how to beat the head stomps here. We're going to get Ken to on block. We're going to get you to do this, and on wake up, we're also going to get you to do this. Okay. See that? And I don't know why you're jabbing. Let's make sure that is off. Let's try that again. Prepare yourself. Not good enough. And I accidentally killed him. He already had lower health, but I think you get the point. The point is that because they're parrying, you have to do this. Remember, nothing else in this game beats parry except for grabs. Command throws, regular throws. Right? You got to throw them if they're parrying, right? Just in case for those that don't believe me. He must have let go of the parry at the last second. See, you have to grab them. So if Chun Li is doing that to you, just parry, right? And I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. is eventually. Now you can stop doing that for me, please. Eventually, you're gonna do this, and because you don't have throw Oki, if you want to get in their face again, you have to do something like this, and then they're gonna parry, and then you're gonna throw them, and then you're gonna do this, and you're gonna throw them, and you're gonna and look, you're burnt out. Yeah, they did take a little bit of damage, but you're Chun Li and burnt out against Ken. So they're gonna push you all the way to the next corner and then kill you. That's what happens pretty much every single time. You can't. It's too expensive to keep trying to do that. Not only to say that this is very predictable, they can just parry it. All right. So if they do a perfectly timed parry on wake up, they can get out of the corner pretty much for free, right? So, so off of a grab in the corner, that's pretty much all you got, right? So you're going to end up burning yourself out. And that's the reason why I didn't include this as being something truly worth being afraid of. Street Fighter, the win condition is putting your opponent into a strike throw mix, scrambling their brain to force them to make a mistake, pretty much. Either they make the mistake by guessing wrong every time and then you grab them 10 times and they die, or they make the mistake by whiffing a throw and then you shimmy them and then you take off half of their health, or things of that nature. Chun Li just kind of doesn't have that win con. All right. And that's a part of the problem. She has the tools to get there, but she doesn't actually have the win condition. And that's the problem. And coming back full circle, that's pretty much the mental stack when it comes to Chun Li, and that's the true reason why this character is so hard. When you're fighting your opponents, they don't have anything to worry about against this character, so you have to make them worry by playing very well. Some other things that you can do, this is very superficial, but it could have an effect. You know, there are players sometimes that will see another player's rank and they will think, oh, that dude's good, I might lose. Or, oh, this dude is bad, this is going to be easy. Your mental really does, and what you believe really can play and really can have an effect in this game. So very similarly to that, if you train yourself to be very effective with things, for example, if you go to do a strike throw mix on your opponent, let's go to set the block off. You go to do and we're gonna get Ken to do a light punch. If you go to do a strike throw mix on your opponent and you do something like this, and I just messed it up, they might be a little scared, especially if they're a little bit of a higher caliber. Obviously, lower ranked players are not going to be very concerned because they don't even know what's happening, right? But if you have somebody that has any decent matchup knowledge and like when it comes to character matchups and the mental stack, if they see you do some crap like this, they might start thinking that you're a higher caliber player. That might make them doubt themselves a little bit, right? Well, what's something else that you can do? Something else that you can do is if you force your opponent, if you're able to shimmy them. Let's say that, if I can get it in an example here, we're gonna get Ken to do a grab on wake up, and let's say that you what's a good one for me to do? Let's do something like this. You start doing all that stuff in their face, they're probably going to be a little bit scared because they went for a throw and then you shimmied them with a character that has terrible range on her best shimmy tool, right? And then you went into a freaking stance and then you punish them for doing that, right? So they might be just a little bit scared, or if you start doing stuff like this, and then you throw them when they wake up or something like that. It's something that you could probably do, like, if you start doing things like this. And we're frauds today, we're dropping easy stuff. Okay, sometimes it's like that. See, that's a meaty throw. So that is a meaty throw. He was jabbing and he could not mash out of that, right? So with that being said, you start showing your skill to people when they jump and they go to do something like this, like we showed in the example earlier, and you start doing crazy stuff like this. And why are we dropping things today? They're probably gonna think you're a higher caliber character. It might make them doubt themselves and make mistakes because they're scared to get punished, right? That's how it is. If you've ever fought like a Grandmaster or an Ultimate Master or something like that, you might have thought the same thing, like, man, this dude's gonna kill me, right? So Chun Li doesn't really have anything to be afraid of, and that's why she's a harder character. Your opponent really doesn't have to mental stack much. They don't have to look out for anything. The only thing in their mind that they're probably looking out for is something like this. So whether they realize it or not, they don't really have to be afraid of anything because she doesn't have the win con like other characters do, right? So that's going to be it for this dojo session. Now, a bit of a teaser. In the next one, I'm thinking of going over some principles that we can use to help enhance and even surpass the idea of mental stack altogether. And I know there are some people that are thinking about this and going like, "Oh, brother, what is this guy on?" But it's gonna be very interesting. So I don't want to spoil anything. But thank you very much for attending this dojo session. Hopefully, it was helpful in helping us to learn more about Chun Li and why we might be having difficulties using her as a player. Hopefully, it's to help foster some understanding. For those that think that I'm off the mark with this one, feel free to leave a comment in the comment sections, or you can meet me in the Chun Li Discord, not Discord, but the Chun Li subreddit. We can have a discussion about it. But I'm pretty sure that I'm on the money when it comes to this because people just don't seem to be afraid of anything when I'm fighting them with this character until they start getting cooked. Once they start getting cooked, that's when they start giving me respect. But other than that, the moment they're in jump range, they will jump. The moment that if I throw a fireball, they're going to jump all day long. If I try to pressure them, they're going to mash. If I try to do stance mix-ups, they're going to press. Right? Happens all the time until I win 3 games on them. Then that's when they start to really think about things a little bit more, right? Because the truth is that you just don't really have to worry about that much with her. Like, you don't have to worry about this. You have to worry about the player punishing you with this for trying to do crazy stuff, right? Like this. You get a Chun Li. If a Ken player gets a Chun Li player that actually punishes them for doing that brain dead mess all day long, they might think twice, right? So, but that's going to be it. Thank you again for attending the dojo session. Feel free to like the video if you like it. Subscribe if you're willing. And this is going to be Sage Armageddon signing out. I hope you all have an awesome day. Take care.